Now that it's come time for me to do a top 10 for the 10th Doctor, I wonder if for the 9th Doctor I should have done a top 9, then for the 11th, the top 11. Heck with it, too gimmicky. Yes, folks, it's time. I have gone back and rewatched every single one, well, except for later appearance in Day of the Doctor, but that's its own thing. But all of the episodes that can truly be said to be 10th Doctor episodes of New Who. I've done the entire Tennant run, so now I need to come up with my top 10. And this was tough. And it was tough for a few reasons. The top, some things have shifted around since last time I did this. And there are some things on here that weren't on here last time. And some things that were on it the last time I did it that aren't going to make it this time. Though, honestly, in an odd way, it was kind of the bottom that was the hardest for me to fill in. Because there were a number of episodes with elements and aspects that I love. But also other stuff that I'm like, yeah, but there's that. And so I had to balance and figure out what struck the best chord overall in terms of the things that worked for me. How much was it diminished by the things that didn't? And really come down to really close calls. But let's get to it. That is more than enough preamble for me. So, starting at number 10, Smith and Jones. So, this is easily the best start to a series so far in modern era Who, and actually continuing through series 4. I say so far, I mean of the ones I've revisited. Of the Davies era, this is the strongest opener because it's a great jumping on point. The Doctor explains who he is. You get the gist of what's going on with him, the kind of problems he deals with. We introduce Martha. We get why the Doctor gets along well with her, what the appeal of her is to him to bring her along. It gives us a fun little romp of an adventure. We got space rhinos. It's got a little bit of everything. It's fun. It's wacky. It's a great just sort of chemistry trial for these two characters. It's a really good piece of work. Number 9, this is your reminder that I count two-parters as a single story. So this one goes to Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. Now, Doomsday is the stronger of these two halves, but I do like this whole story. So, this made the list while I ended up not quite putting on The Stolen Earth and Journey's End. Again, not because I didn't like it. Please keep in mind, just because it wasn't a top 10 doesn't mean don't like that. It just means that when it came down to it, what has the stuff that hits me best? Because Journey's End has the exit of Donna, which I adore and is amazing, but Tennant's also honestly kind of off a little bit in that story, and things just click a little bit better for me, and we have Rose on the other side of that wall, and that hurts in the best way. Not quite to the level of Donna, but that's a good hurt right there. Plus, Daleks versus Cybermen, how can you not just have fun with that? Number 8, the entry that surprised me for making it on here, Waters of Mars. This is one that has vehemently not entered into my top 10 previously, but I better understood what works about it, and I was better able to leave behind the things that other people praise about it that don't quite click for me with this episode, and realize that's not a fault of the episode. That's just a fault, well, not a fault, but that's just a disagreement of this one aspect. So when people tell me it's great because it's scary, maybe it was to them, and I'm not trying to diminish that, but it never has been to me, and I don't think the horror level works nearly as well as some other stuff. But you want to bring down to character drama and the Doctor's own personal arc and pushing him to the degree that he goes by the end of this story, it does that masterfully. It's also one of the better looking episodes in terms of the way it's shot and the atmosphere of it. I still think the Flood is kind of overrated as a villain. They're solid and they work. They're not nearly as scary as some people say, but the thing is, I came to realize on this rewatch, being scary is not the point of this episode. The point of this episode is to push the Doctor and for us to see why him taking that degree of ownership and control over time and people's fates is a bad idea. And it does that really well. Number 7. Some people consider this me to be a breaking of the rule that I count multi-parters as a single story, but I choose to parse this out as its own separate thing, different from the 2-parter that followed. I am talking about Utopia. Yes, the reintroduction of the Master. In the first time we get him in Modern Who, and we've got Derek Jacobi, so wonderful, sweet, affable, immediately likable. And then that turn. Oh, so good. And the tension of that. And more than just that, it's a really neat setup. You know, where do you run when there's literally nowhere else to run to? You are at the end of time. You are at the end of the universe. Where is there to go? But there's still hope. And you still gotta try. And the moments of Jack, like talking with the doctor, he's like in that room with the radiation and it won't kill him, but the doctor asking him from the other side of the door, do you want to die? And Jack not knowing how to answer that. And Martha's little moments aside with Chantho, there's a lot of wonderful little things that make this episode a joy all the way through before the big twist gut punch at the end. Oh yeah. Oh, I love it. Number 6. One that other people might not put as highly as me, but I really do adore this one. This is a comfort food episode for me. School Reunion. This was my introduction to Sarah Jane Smith. This is Anthony Stewart Head as the villain, which is glorious. I will, for as long as the man is still working as an actor, I will continue to be annoyed that Mr. Finch has not come back as a villain, because he was the first villain, really, I would say, other than the Dalek Emperor, or maybe definitely the first one facing Tennant, where he felt like a match for him. When he stands up to him, when the two of them talk to each other, you feel like, oh, we got to be careful about this guy. You don't get that from most of the one-time villains in Doctor Who, especially against Tennant. Tennant commands the screen pretty well. Anthony Stewart Head can match him beat for beat, and it is so good. And then, just K9 back. That's fun. Mickey realizing he's the Tin Dog, which is so sweet and kind of adorable. And I know there's little things about this, and the special effects are not only dated, they weren't exceptionally great at the time, but I like the feel and the vibe of this. I think it's got some great fun dialogue, and just the dynamics of the characters and the performances. I never get tired of seeing this. Number 5, what is basically the gimme. Everyone's going to put this on their top 10 for Tennant. It's just a question of where. This is where I'm putting it, talking about Blink. This is the quintessential Dr. Light story. The Doctor is barely in it, and it doesn't matter. It is still Doctor Who. It still feels like Doctor Who. It has, with the twisting of the time and the scariness of what's going on, and getting this other perspective of and staying with that perspective of the people who are here and are touched by the Doctor, but don't actually get to go with him and aren't with him on any part of this adventure. They have an adventure, they have a part in it, but it's not with him. And getting to see that is really just very cool. And the notion of the Weeping Angels besides that is pretty inventive, and I really do like it. I mean, I honestly think what's scary about it is the execution. The concept's just kind of okay, but then the execution of it visually, that's what makes it scary. Works really well. Terrific performances by a cast of characters that we don't get to see again, but they're all great, bringing their A-game in this. Good stuff. And that brings us up to number 4, The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit. This one's always going to be a top tier one for me for a number of reasons. First of all, I love the tone. I love the mood. I love horror in a space setting. It's this cosmic horror sort of thing with this whole idea of this thing, is it the devil? Is it something else? Is it what inspired the myths of the devil? What is this thing? What is going on? And none of this should be happening. And the guest cast this is one of the best guest casts ever. And definitely in terms of a Base Under Siege sort of story, because they have a wonderful set, firmed up dynamic between each other. All these characters, they behave like they've been working with each other for ages. It's great. It's established rapport. And the Doctor and Rose also doing wonderful stuff. And also, I'm also kind of a sucker for this because it was the Satan Pit catching that randomly on TV in London while on my honeymoon that I first hooked in and like, okay, when I get back home, I gotta start checking out of this stuff. So I'm always gonna be a sucker for that. But I don't even need to be a sucker for it because it's good. It's really good. I love the tone. The atmosphere looks great. Fantastic performances and music, unlike anything else in the entirety of the show. Ah, so good. So here's where things start to get shaken up a little bit, because we're now going to get to the one that last time I did my top 10 Tennant stories came in at the number 1 spot. Now, it hasn't really gone down in my estimation. It's just a few other things ended up being raised up above it after this recent rewatch. So that means right now I get to talk about Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead. So much to love. Donna, love her. And she gets to break my heart with the pain of losing her children that she doesn't really have, but to her, that loss feels real. And the Vashta Nerada, again, terrific concept, really well executed for the scares of it. I love Colin Salmon as Dr. Moon. He really rides the line between affable and yet somehow vaguely insidious. The introduction of River Song, and regardless of whatever you think about her as a character down the line, her introduction is spot on for what she is doing. And especially if you're coming back to this after seeing more of her story, you feel that pain for her at looking at the doctor and realizing he looks right past me. He doesn't know me. I don't mean anything to him yet. And seeing that weigh on her, and to realize she's giving that performance before having done any of the other stuff, or even really knowing what was going to come and only having vague hints of it. What an astounding performance from Alex Kingston. Also, again, a really good established group, a bit like Impossible Planet and Satan Pit. Not quite to that level, but again, great dynamics between the groups, terrific performances, fun, twisty story, and every element of this. I love it. So, number 2, Human Nature and the Family of Blood. It's not easy when the entire pitch of your show is look at the incredible things that this person to do and then take those all away, make them completely ordinary, and still have it be really compelling. And I really like that John Smith is a distinctly different character from the Doctor. There's elements of the Doctor in there, and obviously, it's Tennant, he looks like him, but he's a different person. He behaves differently, he has different reactions. He is visibly scared by a lot of what's going on, and the way that he feels, the way that he processes, it's all very different. And Joan Redfern is a terrific character with a great rapport with Tennant, and also you can feel the hurt from her when she meets the Doctor and she says, "Can you change back?" "Yes." "Will you?" "No." Oh. And then there's the Family of Blood. Wonderful, creepy, off-putting performances, and I love the way that they talk. This whole thing of them sniffing it out, and of course we have our little sneaky introduction of the Fob Watch, which will pay off again later on. The build-up to it is great. Martha also gets some really good stuff to do in this. There are a number of episodes in Series 3 where I feel like Martha is either misused or sidelined or used to recycle things that Rose did, and they even kind of hang a lampshade on that, but I really like this because what is done with Martha in this story could not have been done with another companion. So it's a really great showcase for Martha as well. Everything is clicking, but it does not take the number 1 spot. The number 1 spot needs to go to Midnight. I am always very reticent to use words like flawless. But honest to God, I wouldn't change a thing. Pretty much everything else, even the ones right below this, I'd have one thing that I'd tweak. One little element that I'd alter slightly. This, the way that this entity takes over this woman, the way that all the people on board this bus, basically, react, and how their attempts to cope with what's going on evolve over time, and it just is very revealing about who they are as people. And you can watch this over and over and over again, and each time focus in on a different character and learn more about them, realize more about who they are and how they are processing and how they are dealing or failing to deal with what it is that's going on. And this thing is the perfect foil, the perfect foe for the 10th Doctor specifically to face, because his greatest asset, his mouth, his ability to talk his way out of stuff or to talk information out of people or to just stall for time by talking, is being used against him. It won't save him. In fact, it will doom him. This is so good. Davies knocked it out of the park with this script. The performances further elevated it. It's astounding. And I think, personally, that it's the best 10th Doctor episode. That said, I've rearranged this list before. If I ever do it again in the future, it'll probably get rearranged again. But for right now, that's my list. That's my top 10. What is yours? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. A whole bunch of stuff to do because there's buttons, links, like, and subscribe. Also check out my Patreon. It is greatly appreciated. It helps me cover my bills and hopefully make the channel better down the line. In addition to that, I've got links to a book and my socials, etc. So go ahead and click on those things. They'll take you places, but you also don't have to, because at the end of the day, folks, you are the council. I'm just running the meetings, and until next time, this council is adjourned.